Right.
Good evening, good evening, good evening, everybody. This is Dr. Deborah D. Jenkins, your host for Black Talk Platform, where we talk about everything having to do with the Black community. You know that. Um, I am happy to have as my guest tonight another politician. And I know some of you are saying, why is she doing all of these political shows? Because politics matter to the Black community. And once we learn that and learn it in a way that we're doing more than just voting for people who give us fish dinners and chicken dinners, we'll be in a better place. And so tonight, I have as my guest United States Senate candidate in California, Mr. Deon D. Jenkins. We are not related. It is a coincidence, but I'm happy to have you. Welcome to Black Talk Platform, Mr. Jenkins.
I'm glad to be here. Nice to meet you.
Nice to meet you as well. And let me just tell my regular audience how I met Mr. Jenkins. I'm spending so much more time on Twitter these days than I spend on Facebook, and that's with purpose, everybody. Uh, and so in Twitter has this relatively new um, part of it called Spaces, and I jump in and out of different spaces. And yesterday, I saw where a space was being held discussing Mr. Jenkins's candidacy in California, and I said, well, let me jump in there and see. If you've been watching recently within the last 3 months, I've been talking a lot about redress. I'm going to explain that in another show, but let's get to the bottom of it. It is about reparations due Black Americans, descendants of slavery, chattel slavery here in the United States. And the distinction is very important that we make. This I've just decided, and I said this the other week when I had Congressman Bowman on. I've come to the conclusion that in this country, if we're going to be served well, and we have never been served well in this country as a people, we need to receive reparations, and that's going to take on many forms. And so last night, when I saw that Mr. Jenkins is a reparation candidate, I was intrigued because, as you know, you've also seen Greg Marcel Dixon, who is giving Congressman Jim Clyburn a run for his money down in South Carolina. They started early voting today in South Carolina. I hope everybody's getting out there. Good evening. Good evening. But tonight, we are here talking to Mr. Jenkins about his candidacy. Mr. Jenkins, may I ask you, it's like a loaded question. Loaded in that is more than one part. What made you decide to run for United States Senate, and what are your platform items?
Yes, I decided to run back in around, I would say 2021 after my presidential run in 2020. I said, well, I'm a come back during the midterm elections. I started running in 2015 as well. I ran as a presidential candidate for the first time in 2015, 2016, and I ran again in 2020. Every single time, reparations was at the centerpiece of my agenda. And in 2018, I established a reparations package entitled DMLG, which stands for Defense, Money, Land, Grants, constructed from the four elements of society, because I concluded after doing a lot of research that every society has four elements in common. Every society has a defensive structure, every society has an economy, every society has land, and every society has having access to that economy. So I established that package. I was very adamant about it, and I said, you know what, I'm going to get into Congress somehow so I could write this reparations package into a piece of legislation. And to explain the DMLG, the defensive structure is the first part, because I believe that you cannot have anything, there will be no reparations without being able to protect it. And that protection comes with the 14th Amendment being the bottom line, because our enforcement of the law, the Equal Protection Clause in the 14th Amendment, is not being addressed. and it is not being upheld by our American government, and that is a violation of American law. So I advocate that in order for us to get true enforcements, then we must have specific enforcements for us, specific armed forces of the military, law enforcement agencies, and a court system. Um, and you cannot do that if you're not infiltrated into Congress, and you cannot do that if you're not a president. My ultimate goal is become the president, and I have no secrets about that. Even as a child, I said I'm going to be the president after learning about the painships of our people, and I said somebody have to do this, and when I grow up, I'm going to be a president. I said that like when I was 8 or 9 years old, and when I turned 15, I mean when I turned 35, I on the very day of my birthday, I registered to become a presidential candidate. And so to get back to the reparations package, with the defensive structure being in the front of it, um, understanding that the 14th Amendment is being violated, understanding the Equal Protection Clause, which means all Americans should be treated equally and have equal access to that protection. Unfortunately, it's too many blacks who descended from American slaves who do not have that protection. So we must change that. Now, how we change that is that we have an overhaul of evidence that shows that blacks who descended from American slaves, protections are being violated. And we are under what's called taxation without representation. We are not being um, acknowledged in American government using that equal protection clause. So we must have specific pr- protections, and that's how you balance it. In 2006, the FBI stated that white terrorist groups were infiltrating law enforcement. In 2014, the FBI stated that white terrorist groups grew from 149 to over 1,000 groups. So we have a white terrorist problem that is not being acknowledged. We need to use those same RICO laws to excavate white terrorists out of American society. No, and it is we can use those same RICO laws to lock up Pookie and Ray Ray and all of his partners, but we don't use those same RICO laws for the KKK or any other white terrorist group that love to terrorize blacks who descended from American slaves. And I think that is a disrespect to the American Constitution. So with the defensive structure, we have to get using the same guidelines of other presidents like John F. Kennedy, who established the Navy SEALs. He signed that into law, using precedents of like John Adams, who signed into law the the Marines, using the same precedents of like a Theodore Roosevelt, who signed into law the FBI, and Harry Truman, who signed into law the CIA. Well, if I became president or if I had access to Congress, I would create legislation as a congressman to actually have these specific groups in military. Okay, these specific branches in law enforcement, these specific branches in the military. And as president, I will use an executive order to carry that out. Understanding that the 14th Amendment is the bottom line, and we are being taxed without representation. This entire country got its independence from Great Britain because we are taxed without representation. The hate crimes are already there. You got the Shepard-Byrd Act. You have Title I of the Civil Rights Act of 1968. And both of those laws specifically state that no targeting of a person's race is tolerated. You cannot tolerate them to inflict any pain or anything. The problem is not like more hate crime bills or nothing like that. The problem is not uh, enforcing the bills and laws that already exist, and
That's the problem.
that's the problem. That's a huge issue.
Yeah.
And we have a military, we have law enforcement agencies, we have a court system, The problem is that when it comes to Black people, that element of society is not being addressed, right? And they use the court systems against us. They use their law enforcement agencies against us, and they use the military against us. And we have FBI documents that are stating that white extremist groups are infiltrating them. The second element is
Wait,
my
wait, wait.
money part.
Before we go on to the money part, which is the part that most people are
Mhm.
most familiar with, let me ask you about this defense part, because just say that you actually win this seat.
Mhm.
Stranger things have happened, right? You
Mhm.
can win. You could possibly win. So you have this configuration of the current 117th Congress. And here's my thing. I think I make no bones about how I believe that the Congressional Black Caucus is pretty ineffective. I'm trying to use nice language here. Pretty ineffective as a body of legislators. So just
Mhm.
imagine presenting that part of your bill to them,
Right.
starting there, to get co-sponsors. Many of them are in northern states, or if they're not in northern states, they're in states where they themselves own weapons, but yet they don't encourage us as Black people to own weapons. You know, so what is the likelihood of getting co-sponsors from the Congressional Black Congress Caucus? Because we already know that the majority of the white ones are not going to support readily anyway a defense act or bill that does anything to specifically protect us as a people.
Right. Yes, and you raise a very good point, and that is a problem because a lot of the Black ones won't either. So we need to uproot them out of the Congress and implant new people in.
Right.
It's just that
Okay.
simple, and we
But
have to
is it
move by a code.
okay?
Right.
We're gonna get to the code in 1 second. But is it that simple? Because a senator, United States senator,
Mhm.
serves for 6 years, right?
Right.
So we're gonna have to go through a cycle.
Right.
Well, first of all, there are only two Black senators. One is Republican and doesn't caucus with the CBC, and the other is Cory Booker, who probably will not lose his seat within 6 years. I don't see him signing on though. So the rest you
Right.
would actually have to in Congress, in the Senate. I was conflating the two, right? You
Well,
would have
Congress
to
is the
rely
Senate. Yeah, yeah, Congress is the
the
Senate.
House of Reps.
Well, your House of Representatives and you have the Senate. That's all Congress.
It is
Um,
all Congress, but as a senator, if you're elected
yeah,
senator, you need to start with Cory Booker, right? And
yeah.
as a senator, to try to get him to sign on as a
He's
co-sponsor.
not signing on to that.
He's not going to sign on to that, right? So we have a 6 year cycle. You um,
Right.
you are elected and you begin your term January 2023. You got
Mhm.
6 years. The likelihood of getting more Black senators um is very no. So I'm not poo-pooing it. I'm not saying it's wrong. What I'm thinking about is the Native Americans and the reservations, how they have their own courts and they have their own police and everything. So is that something that you're proposing, a model that's similar to theirs, or are you talking about for this whole nation, which is a racist nation?
Yeah, for the whole nation, we need um, specific defensive structures for us. And this is our country, and the problem is we are not being treated as if this is our country. We're just as American as anybody else. The
Sure.
problem is the defensive structure that's in place right now is not upholding that. The court systems are not upholding that.
Right.
So we must have our own politicians. We're not going to be able to convince any. We're not going to. Well, something just fell on my best, like a acorn or something just fell on my roof of my car. It kind of startled me.
Yeah.
But we are not going to be able to convince anybody to take our grievances and wants into consideration as a requirement. We have to do that ourselves, and that's what we advocate. It may take some time, but this is why, one of the reasons why I'm running. I'm talking to people and out here campaigning and trying to create a movement, and am creating a movement. I've already had people tell me, yeah, man, you inspired me. I might run next time, so we're going to need a lot more of us, but we're
Yeah.
going to have to be on code, and we're going to have to keep a black agenda at the forefront.
Okay. And I definitely want to talk about the code, but I did want to give you an opportunity to go a little bit more into detail about the other
Yeah,
three elements. Go
I
ahead.
appreciate that. So
Mhm.
the second element is the economy, capital, and I constructed a money part, DMLG, defense money land grants. The money part is just like this. I constructed a 3% at least factor, and I want to really stress this home because every time I say this part, it drives a lot of confusion, and I don't understand why. The at least factor is just that. It's only an at least factor. It's not an absolute number. It starts off at a number. So, and the reason why I created an at least factor is because I had to give a number that we can all agree to right now,
Mhm.
so that, just for the sake of debate. So I stated that, okay, if there are 300 million people in this country, um, at least 3% of them can prove their lineage as blacks who descended from American slaves. At least three of them. I mean, at least 3%, right? That
Mhm.
would equate that will equate to 10 million people altogether. All right. So we
Mhm.
know that the number is way bigger than that. I articulated that numerous of times, how we don't take the census and we don't take any documentations a lot, classifying us or race or anything. So
Right.
there are a lot of people out here, but once reparations um, begin to come into fruition, people are going to start coming out of the woodworks. And trust me, our numbers are going to pop and explode. And for the first time in American history, we are going to have uh, a numerical representation of a population size that we never saw before, and that is a fact. So with the at least factor of 3%, if you take, I did a lot of research and a lot of studies, and I concluded that the United States is worth $1 quadrillion. How did I come up with that number? Is I tallied up every single gross domestic product since 1865, every GDP. I added it all up, and it came to about $1 quadrillion plus or minus. I said, well, if I take that at least factor of 3%, and I put it on that $1 quadrillion. I multiplied it into that $1 quadrillion. I would get $30 trillion. So you get, we would get two checks. We would get one lump sum check, and we would get another check, an annual check. The lump sum check is the 3% multiplied by um, $30 trillion, which is excuse me, 3% of $1 quadrillion, which is $30 trillion. If you divide 10 million people into that $30 trillion, you get everybody getting about, at least starting off at $3.1 million for every check of a lump sum. The second check is an annual. Just a minute. Uh, Somebody's calling me. Give me a second. I'm gonna turn that off. The second check is an annual check. The annual check is based on the annual GDP. In 2018, the annual GDP was about $20 trillion. So what I did was I took the at least factor of 3%, and I multiplied it with 20 trillion, and I got $600 million. If you divide 600 million into 10 million, you get every black who descended from American slaves receiving a $60,000 check annually, with inflation given to you. With inflation given in equity for every year. So that check will build up interest as time goes on because of inflation, and that check will always go up, and it will never stop, because this country always will always owe us, because we built this nation. Just like we cannot tell the IRS, we cannot tell the American government that we don't have to pay them every year, because they will look at us and lie and laugh and say, you're going to pay us as long as you live.
Mhm.
Well, it's vice versa. As long as this country exists, they this government owes our people a check. All right.
Yeah.
Uh, so the third element is land.
Well, wait. I want to
Yeah.
say a little something between each of them. So
Right.
we, the reparations community, we are excited, ecstatic about the work being done in your state, led by Camilla V. Moore and the task force for the
Mhm.
A3121. And they've had some awesome experts come in with numbers. Have you considered any part of their work in yours? It seems like you've done it since before they got it
Mhm.
together or around the
Yeah.
same time. Have you seen any commonality? Have you gone to any of those hearings that were had, and any of the listening sessions that they're doing now? I think they did one recently in Oakland. Have you taken part? That's the bottom line. Have you taken part in any
Right.
of their work?
No, no, I have not. They're doing their thing, and I'm doing mine. They're more on the state level. I'm working more on the federal level. So we're on two different areas of spectrum. Anyway, however, I would like to be more involved. I actually did an interview with a guy by the name of Chris, who works with those guys. I'm gonna try to reach out with that brother, because my constituency is asking about that. And, they would like for me to be more involved with those
Absolutely.
people. So
Oh yeah.
I'm definitely interested in working with them, and yeah, we can make this happen, and team up.
Absolutely.
And then shout out to those people, because they're making California bow right now, and it's very, very admirable.
It is, and their work actually is not going to just be California. You have your Secretary of State, who, as
Right,
the Assemblywoman, who is supporting it with both her feet, and your
right,
governor
right.
allocated. And I mean, I don't, I'm not a Californian, right? But
Mhm.
this $43 billion in unspecified use, he allocated to do the delineation, and which is a huge,
Right,
huge issue. And it was a lot of contention, even on the task force, for them to come to lineage-based delineation. That is so huge.
right.
And so I bring up California because I feel that the work that Miss Moore's task force, all of those
Mhm.
people on that 9-member task force is doing, is going to be the prototype for the federal, which is what you're saying you're doing. And so I feel like it's I'm glad you have heard from your constituents and are going, and is going, you are going to get involved. But they'll be submitting their final report next year, June. They're releasing their draft tomorrow, actually. So I would
Right.
say you really want to see what a commonality is, because I believe as California goes in terms of reparations, that's where the federal government will go. It's not HR 40. It is
Now,
going
HR
to
40
be,
is that's a shield bill.
yeah. And
Yeah.
so that work that they're doing out there is work that you want to not say marry necessarily yourself to. You might want to just check it out to see the commonality, so that you will be able to go back and tell your constituents, yeah, a lot of the stuff that they're doing, I'm already trying to do, is in my proposal as well. So I'm going to let you go on to the third one, because I do
Right.
want to get to the second question if we're not able to get to the third before we end tonight. Go on with the
Yeah.
third, the land.
Yeah. So the third element is land. We were already promised that this country owes us 40 acres and a mule, right? That's the most famous reparations package that we ever heard. And that's a historical reparations package that was reneged on us after the Reconstruction era, after Abraham Lincoln was assassinated. So I plan to administer that back and bring that back to life. If you take my at least factor of at least 10 million people, and you multiply that with 400 um, acres of land. I mean, with 40 acres of land, 10 million people times 40 is 400 million acres of land. That's a land mass larger than Texas, and that's an at least factor, right? So, and yeah, and the mule part is the grants. Now, you probably want to talk
The
about
land.
some of the
Let me
land.
say
Yeah.
something about the land real quick. Have you done any work or study around the plight of the black farmers and
Oh yeah.
the millions of acres of
Well,
land that we
yeah.
have as a people lost collectively?
Not just black farmers. We had our own towns. There's a famous book called Sundown Towns.
Hmm.
I advise everybody to read it. Right here in the Bay Area, there's a famous city called Napa, and the acronym it's actually Wine County, and the acronym is No African People Allowed, and it's a sundown town. And it was a real sundown town back, during the segregation period. So yes, if you read the book Sundown Towns, you would see that all throughout the country there were acres and acres and acres of land that was stripped from us.
Yeah.
We had whole black migrations because of white terroristic resistance. They would just take the land. They would, make false accusations of rape and all this type of stuff. The same thing that they're doing now, and they would use any type of accusation that they could to justify and just go in people's houses, their cities, and just pillage. So that's something that we have to understand. And I will use eminent domain to get that land back. A lot of it will be eminent domain, and there are a lot of federal lands that are not occupied. It's millions and millions of acres of federal land. I don't know if you ever took a road trip across country, but if you ever do, you'll see land.
Yeah.
I'm talking about acres and acres and acres and acres of land that is not occupied. So that is something that is really that's pretty much a requirement.
Yeah,
Yeah.
but as it relates to the black farmers, I have a heart for them because they are having difficulty right now since this president Biden has been in. The monies have not been released that have been ordered to be released that they might be able to maintain their farm. So, just in terms of the land, would you include that?
Of
Helping to
course.
make them whole,
Oh yeah.
those farmers who are taking care of their families and feeding other black families and beyond. How
Oh
would
yeah.
you go about doing that?
Well, any type of um blockage that's being placed on anybody land. Now, well, we all know back in the days they would actually, build highways through people's lands. There are a lot of ways how they stripped us of land. The farmer part of it is just one subcategory, but
It's
any,
a huge category. It's a huge category because
right,
this is their this is literally their bread and butter. This is
right,
their legacy for their families, right?
right. But even with the Um, yeah, so I mean, any type of blockage, taking away people's lands, not being able to allow people to have full access on their lands or whatever it is, I will definitely intervene with that in any way possible that I could.
Yeah, but their threat is not simply that their land is being taken away. That would be a byproduct of the benign neglect when there is a court order that says they are supposed to receive these funds. These funds were in the American Rescue Plan, I believe that's what it's called, and they have not been released to them. They don't have the same access to government contracts. This is what I'm asking in terms of your land. I get the eminent domain push. I'm okay with that. They've used that against us, as you said, for many years to take our land. But in terms of the immediate need of black farmers in this country, and they stretch from every state, not one state is excluded. What could you do? Because going to Congress as senator or congressperson, you got to work with other people. So, what would you do? Can you tell me for all those farmers who are in California, black farmers, I'm
Mhm.
talking about, who would you first speak to? And I'm not talking necessarily about another elected official, but who would you speak to first on behalf of the black farmers? for land. This is a land question.
Right, right. So, what I would do is I would create a board, and these farmers will be able to go to the board, and what they would be able to do is they would be able to articulate their grievances, and they would say, "Look, can we have any type of grants for my farmland right here? If I could get any type of capital for building up this farmland," and they can get approved for actual grants. My reparations package, the grants part of it, will be able to do that.
Okay.
Yeah.
Would you not go to Secretary Vilsack? He's the Secretary of USDA of the Agriculture.
I mean, yeah, I mean, I would have to work with anybody who I have to work with, but my main thing is just to create the legislation, right, and try to get it passed. Because once you pass the legislation through Congress is going to be law, you know. But working with people, in certain positions of power, I would have to be able to work with them. But to be honest with you, they're not going to want to work with me right now. I mean, that we have to implement other people, just like you gave great the great example of Cory Booker. It's not happening. You're not going to be able to network with these people for Black people's concerns. It's just not. It's not happening.
Okay. And I do have a question. Thank you for the questions. Please submit your questions. I want them. I want them. I want them. It's a backup question. I'm going to go back just a little bit. Sister Reps, I don't know if there's any other part to her name, but here's okay. She wants to know, and you can probably see in the chat, but let me put it up here, but I'll read it as well because it's sort of long. Can you ask, thank you, sister. Can you ask the candidate what are his thoughts about AB 3121, CJEC, NAASD, LA? We sort of touched on that, but I'll let you answer her. And have you ever worked with these two grassroots activist organizations? Excellent question.
Yeah, AB 3121 was a bill that Governor Newsom signed in 2020. It's a reparations bill for the state of California, and basically they just submitted a lineage requirement that Blacks, well, they don't say Blacks who descended from American slaves, but they passed a vote and they narrowly won by like one vote that it has to be lineage based and not race based. So that was a huge win. Have I ever worked with these two grassroots activist organizations? No, I've talked to one guy who's involved a couple of years, about a year and a half back. But outside of that, no, I have not worked with those organizations.
Okay. Oh, Reps. Okay, cool, Reps. Thank you so much for your great question. And it's fine that you came in late. We all come in and out of these things, and I think that was a great question because he's in California, and he has said that his constituency wants him to be involved with the work being done around AB 3121. I know I follow CJEC myself, and I've just recently been on a call with, I believe, some members of NAASD. So I'm not even in California, but I do know the importance of you making that connection with them as soon as you can. She's asking now, what is the name of the guy you mentioned him before?
Yeah, Chris. Chris Dotson. Chris, I believe his last name is Dotson. I'm not sure, but his first name is Chris. I've talked with him before. I had interviewed him before. Yeah.
You interviewed him. Okay. So yeah. Her question is really, really great. And here, and I'll go on so you can talk about, we sort of just touched on it, but the reason why I think her question is really relevant is because you're in California, right? And they are doing this groundbreaking work. They are the leaders of the pack out of 50 states. And so a Black candidate should definitely, most definitely know what's going on as it relates to 3121, AB 3121. There's another reparationist candidate also in California. Are you familiar with him? I don't know North South and all of that stuff in terms of,
What's his name?
somebody put his name in there for me, Reverend Summerfield. Reverend
Yeah,
Sum-
I've heard of that name. Yeah, Reverend Stubbsford, and he's what position is he running for?
he's running for a congressional seat.
Which district?
Oh, like I said, I don't know.
Okay,
I don't know the areas and those types of
it's
things.
all good. Yeah, okay. Yeah, but I've definitely heard of him. As a matter of fact, I think the Black
Somerville,
grassroots. I think
Reverend
the
Somerville.
I
Thank
think the
you.
grassroots mentioned him before.
Yeah.
That's how I found out about him. Yep.
And I guess I don't know if did we hit all of your 3 point. The fourth part was about the grants. That was the fourth part.
But to go back though, we got to have that same energy too for other people who are running. Like, if you are around him or if you're around the task force, right? It'd be good to say, yeah, we have a guy out here, because my constituents are talking about they never heard of me and all this type of stuff. So just like I am getting the word, and there is a it seems like there is a real concern, and that there is a real um, prioritization to make sure that I am networking with these people. I think that same type of um, requirements should be placed on them as well. We have, I know I don't want what I'm doing to be negated. You have a guy out here who's running, and have a chance to win if the people backed him. We should allow, when we're talking to Somerville, when we're talking to the task force, let them know that, yeah, there's a guy out here who's running for Senate. Have you heard of him? And if they tell you no, you should have a sense of a sense of urgency there, like, well, you should know about this person, right? And everybody should, that way we could have a unison, and it's not just one person getting all of the blame and all of the attention because he didn't go to a meeting, or because he don't know about this person or that person. I
Yeah.
think the accountability goes both ways, and if we could just, um have that same accountability for everybody, you
Oh,
know,
I
that
think
way, because I got some of my constituency, and you was up in there, guys telling me, like, I'm out here in these streets every day, and these guys talking about they never heard of me,
well, let's talk
like,
about that.
it's
Yeah,
like,
let's talk about that because
yeah.
there are certain voices. Like I've
And I
seen
want to
reps.
finish my, yeah, I want to finish my my reparation package too. But now
I'm gonna let you.
we can acknowledge this, but it's up to the people to spread that word. It's up
But
to the people, you know what I'm saying?
I have
Because
to get a little pushback on that. Let me give you a little pushback on that. Let me tell you why. I'm all the way here in New York, right? I know all the three, and I just butchered his name, but Reps cleared it up for me. I know all of the three major candidates, reparationist candidates who have been running this year. Um, One's candidacy ended last week with a defeat, and that's Tamara Shilley down in Georgia. But let me tell you, I don't poo poo that 4% that she got. She got 17,000 plus people to vote for her. And Tamara has been going across the state of Georgia. She was actually running for Senate also against Raphael Warnock. So she
right,
was making her way across the state of Georgia. And she was able to garner 4% of the
the vote.
votes that should have easily have been his. So I'm saying kudos to her. And she's been out here in these Twitter streets for months. And I actually heard her first in Clubhouse. I sort of migrated away from there, but I'm just saying she's been
Right.
all over, and she was able to amass a 4% share of the Democratic primary vote. I think that's great. Now, Reverend Summerfield, he's in a area and Reps, because you're out there and you're doing the work. He's in a district that he's running in that is like, I think he said it's like 9 candidates. So we know there's going to be some plucking there. But on his website, he does represent reparations. Third candidate, the one that we that was mentioned in the space last night, and I have to give him kudos because he saw that you were being interviewed. He came in there to support you. And then things sort of went off the wires, and we're not going to go back over all of that. But that's
Right.
Greg Marcel Dixon, who I mentioned at the top of the hour, and he's doing excellent. He's really doing really well down there in South Carolina, and I'm so hopeful that he will be able to unseat the majority whip, because we're not being served as Black people. And Marcel, he comes with the receipts in terms of his knowledge and what his sitting congressman is not doing for Black people there. Reps wants to know also, had you heard of Shirley, or do you know her? Have you seen her in these
Oh yeah, yeah. I think she's the one who introduced Marcel, wasn't she? Um, I'm not.
I mean,
Was he the one
they're
who
all
introduced?
over. They're all over.
Yeah.
So I don't know. You
Because
mean yesterday in that space? She wasn't in that space.
I first heard of Marcel through Tamara Shealy, because she came into a Twitter space and she introduced
Okay.
Marcel. Yeah.
So she was running down there. So there's the answer. Yeah. So this is a big deal. So the pushback that I just wanted to offer to you, and you can definitely push back also. I don't think it's for your constituents, who many that I heard speak last night were unaware of you, for them to go to the task force meetings or the listening sessions that are going on right now and let them know about you. I believe as a candidate, the task force needs to know who you are because you show up. Does that not make sense?
Yeah. But it takes if I show up, right? Because I showed up the other night, and you saw the pushback I got, but I received a lot of pushback because of my stance, and we all know what that is. And when people felt comfortable to grieve their opinions on me, when they felt it was a green light to just go head on against me, their everything that was in them came out, and that's probably why they didn't hear of me. Because if you have any type of prejudice mindsets about my campaign, if you don't take grassroots candidates seriously, you're not going to know candidates, because I take it seriously, right? I actually go to these websites, the Secretary of State's. I look in voter information guides, even before I ever ran, even before I was eligible to run, because I was too young. I would look at voter information guides to see who's running, to see if I knew them. And if I heard of them before, I would just Google names, like just on natural uh, curiosity. So if that interest is not there, then when you have a candidate that gets in front of you, it's going to come out as soon as there's a green light to either attack him or criticize him or anything like that. And it's all right to be criticized, but the attacking was something else, right? But if a person gets the green light to do that, their true selves are going to come out, and we are going to see their true nature, and the reason why they probably never heard of me. So it's all tangled in together. Everybody have a responsibility. I have that, and the constituents have that, to make sure that we get the movement flourishing in the right direction.
Okay. See, I was trying not to do this, but I'm gonna, because she's engaging. She's in California, and I'm happy she's
Yeah, I don't
engaged.
want to talk about Marcel. I don't want to
Okay.
talk about
Okay, but
Marcel.
she's
This
just
is not.
responding to what you just
Yeah,
said. She said
yeah, that's
that they
cool,
thought,
but
but
right, right.
the brother. Let me just go back to that brother who I think was the first one who may have gotten languagey. I'll put it like that. And guys, I'm just a prude, and so you won't find me out here using language. But I know who he was speaking about, and I don't know him. But what he was saying is that the way you responded to him as a potential supporter, vote caster for you, he left that space. I don't know if he left the space. I left the space. He left feeling like, I'm not going to cast my vote for you. But as it relates to getting the word out about you, he said he's in Oakland, and I've never heard of you before tonight. That's what he
Oh
said last
yeah,
night.
the guy who came
That guy.
on yelling at me like off top. never knew me from a can of paint. He admitted that he never heard of me before. He don't know me. He was bashing my character and all that type of stuff. Yeah, that he
That
attacked me. That was an attack. See, there's a difference between being critical and attacking somebody. You know what I'm saying? And it just was a cordial. Like he could have spilled all of that out in a very swaggy way, in a very self-controlled demeanor, and got his point across. Instead, he was attacking my character, calling me a fraud, bashing my campaign, telling me I'm a fake reparationist. He was doing all of that. So that's something that we have to consider. Like we have to respect each other. You know, we don't have to give each other honor. We don't have to give each other honor, but we definitely have to give each other respect. And there's a certain level of respect and decorum that you give a person just for being human if you don't know them. Until
right.
you know them, and if they prove otherwise that they're not worthy of respect, then you take that away. But the brother didn't even know me, so
Yeah.
and I'm not going to dwell on that, you know. And but yes, anyway, I would like to um finish my reparations package if I
Sure.
can do that. The last element is grants,
Mm-hmm.
the access to capital to be able to establish a grants package. If you could prove that you are a black who descended from American slaves, you should be able to go to a board and actually get governmental funded money to build up infrastructure for blacks who descended from American slaves without it coming out of your own pocket. And that is my DMLG
Okay, and
package.
it's admirable. Like I said, I'm all for the black farmers being made whole. That's not happening. We need somebody who would say, as part of a land package, we're going to
Right.
start there because they are the ones who have the most at stake. That's how they make their living.
No. I don't think we should start it anywhere. I just think that anybody who have a grievance, who want to build up the infrastructure, will be able to have access to the board. I'm not going to say, well, this person have priority, that person don't. Everybody have priority. If you are a black who descended from American slaves, and if you can prove that, you have priority. There are some farmers, there are some computer scientists, there are some technicians, there are some doctors, there are some lawyers, there are some engineers, some inventors. Everybody have access, the same equal access as everybody else. I don't want to prioritize
Wow, that's
anybody. That's my stance.
I hear you, but that's
Yeah.
disheartening to me. It just is because when you think about the gross amount of land that they currently own, the compromised state that they're in, I can sit at my computer and I do a lot of work on my computer, right? I do run businesses on my computer. I don't personally believe I should go before them. You know why? My overhead is so much less than theirs. They are just, I'm just saying, you can think if you would. I think I heard someone ask you today in terms of the numbers that you ran. They shared with you a Newsweek article or a report or something. I can't remember which outlet it was, but he asked you, and he asked you so nicely, and you did say you would consider looking at those numbers. I'm saying consider putting the black farmers ahead of computer run businesses such as mine because there needs to be an order. When we think about the losses, I can shut down one business today and start another one from my computer tomorrow. You can't do that when you own a farm and your livelihood, that of your families, is tied to that land. I'm just saying, let's just think about it. I like the grants piece. I think it's already embedded in the government. A lot is not working properly.
No. We don't have anything embedded in the government that specifically address blacks who descended from American slaves receiving
Okay.
grant for
Okay. So
reparations.
what
There's
what
nothing
department
there.
would you put that under? What
Huh?
department? What department would you propose putting this board under?
Well, you can create your own.
You're
Um,
going to
um,
create another agency within the government
yeah,
that's already
yeah.
broken and we have so much bloat. You're going to create, instead of just fixing some of the broken pieces. I'm
Okay.
just asking. These are questions I'm
Yeah,
asking.
yeah. I'm not understanding your question because you could create your own task force. You could create your own government. You could create your own committees. I mean, they're doing that with HR 40 right now. That they have a committee. Joe Biden allowed a committee to be established to specifically address HR 40. So you could create that. Like that's not going to be.
But
And
HR 40's been around almost 40 years, right?
yeah, but
We
there
need
was
more than that. We need more than HR 40. It's
no,
in
I'm
the
not.
text.
Yeah. I'm not saying HR. I use that as an example. I don't agree with HR 40. That's only a study. Okay,
Right.
that's only a study. So I don't agree with HR 40. What I'm saying is that whatever you need, it could be created if we have people in positions of power to create it. You are the quarterback. You make those decisions. So if you need a department, a committee, anything, you can create that if it doesn't exist.
I got you. I got you.
Because from my knowledge, there is no reparations department. I could be wrong.
No, you're not wrong. You're not wrong.
Okay.
We can't even get a study. There's not even a study, right? So there's no reparations department, but there is the Department of Interior. And that is what they've used for many years to.
We need a specific reparations department. We can't go by any departments that.
All right. I'm just saying, look, get rid of some of the junk that's there and that's ineffective and it's not serving our use. But I hear you if you want to start from the beginning. Let's get to the second question because the time, oh my goodness, because I really wanted to hear your points. And I wanted this space to be created to give you that opportunity. I also want to know, and this is not one of the questions I asked about, but it sort of came up when you said you need your constituents to go to these meetings and tell people, that you're running. Well, first of all, they need to know you're running, right? How big is your team? What is your ground team like? Because they're the ones, your team, your campaign team are the ones that should be going around making sure everybody in the community knows whether you have a billboard or not. Because I did hear you say, I don't have billboards, but I have signs all throughout Oakland and other places. What is your ground team doing?
Yeah, I have a street team. We don't, we meet up when we can, you know what I'm saying? But I'm trying to get in contact with a couple of them now because I want to go to Oakland this Saturday, and I believe that some of my constituents are going to be up there. So I'm actually working on to make that a little bit bigger right now, as a matter of fact. So yeah, and then all that costs money, and that's coming out of my own pocket, So
who are your contributors beyond yourself? Do you have
myself? I have contributors, just myself. Yeah, I fund this myself. Huh?
I said, really? That's different.
Yeah, I fund this all myself. Yes, ma'am.
And that might be a reason why more of us don't know, right? But I heard you mention grassroots. We are grassroots.
I was just placed in the Sacramento Bee. That's a top 5 California news publication. Okay. People saw that. Okay. People saw that. All right. A lot of people saw that. A lot of people who you mentioned, they saw that. So it's not like it's really hard to not have heard of me in California. I mean, I'm in publications. I'm out here. And not to say that they don't that there's not to say that that they're expected to have heard of me, because I could have slipped through the cracks with a lot of people. But I've been doing this for a long time. And if anybody ever picked up a newspaper, if they ever read an article, if they watch TV, I've been on KPIX News a few years ago. I've been interviewed by Doug Sovereign on KCBS Radio, the #1 radio station for news in the state of California. If you're in the grips, you would have heard of me. So I don't, now, as far as what I mean by that is if you have more of a well-rounded spectrum of where you go for information. Mm-hmm. But if you are only tuning in to certain channels of information, then you probably have never heard of me, right? Mm-hmm. Also, I am on the streets every day. and I've been doing this for since 2015. And anytime I ran, I was out here. All
Okay.
right. So it all depends. And there were some people who called in my broadcast who say, yeah, I've heard of that brother. I may not agree with his stands on this, but I've heard of him. There were people who actually, called in and stated that in the broadcast. So
Okay.
I think we give too much power to the few people for the people who claim that they never heard of me. And I took accountability. I need to make myself more known.
Yeah.
And I've told them that. I said, look, I need to do whatever I can do to make myself more known, and that's what I'm doing every day.
That's
So
good.
yep.
Because I think that Senator Padilla, he has deep
Mhm.
pockets. I mean, the whole machine is against you. How are you stacking up against him in terms of polls?
Um, I don't really look at polls. Like polls, like okay,
Okay,
there was a poll.
forget the polls. How you doing?
No, nobody who I know take polls.
Okay,
None of them.
how are you looking in terms of running?
Well, you know, I, you know, Alex Padilla is the favorite. And that's by no um question right now.
Yeah.
And I still have another week, and I'm running a lot of ads as we speak. I'm running ads on Facebook. I'm getting my street team
Good.
together, and
Hmm.
we're trying to do this. I believe I can win, and we can win, but we just need a little bit more support. And I'm not taking nobody's money. All I ask is that people just get out and vote. That's it. When you see my name, vote. That's
When
all you have to do.
you said it's next week, what day is it
June the
early
7th.
voting? June 7th. That's the
Yeah,
early voting.
no, we have early voting. We have mail-in
Okay.
ballots out here.
Okay.
So the mail-in ballot started about a couple of weeks ago, 2 or 3 weeks ago.
Okay.
So yeah. So
And the
people
last day is the 7th.
people have already voted.
Okay.
Some people have already voted for me. Yeah.
So the actual election day is the 7th,
June
Tuesday.
the 7th. Right.
Gotcha. Okay.
Right.
So let me pivot to our second. We're not going to get to the third. It's almost the same. As I've said twice here tonight, I'm so committed to flipping some Congressional Black Caucus seats because you guys have several out there, but they're ineffective in terms of what we need as a people.
Yeah.
So there was a lot of talk last night about staying on code, a lot of
Right.
talk. And there were camps of talk of code. So what is the code to you as it relates to politics and the current representation of the Black community by the Congressional Black Caucus? What is the code in your opinion, and how do you believe that the Congressional Black Caucus is serving the Black community under that code?
Right. Well, the code was started by a guy by the name of Dr. Neely Fuller, and he addressed that code, stating that Black people should be on code with, treating each other correctly, and that was the code, and not and standing up against white supremacy, and not being duped by white supremacy. That was the code. How you translate into politics is you vote for candidates who prioritize a Black agenda. That's what you do.
Do you think we currently have any of those elected?
Um, Elected? No, that I know of. No.
Right, right. So they are failing us. The Congressional Black Caucus is basically failing us.
Yes, ma'am.
Yeah. So how just imagine you're the only one out of the three reparationists running. You of the three, and you be taking a Senate seat, United States. That's the most powerful, right? The upper chamber. How will you work with these off code Congressional Black Caucus folk? How you get them on code?
Well, you get them on code by the grassroots have to keep electing people in, and they're going to realize that they're going to have to change their demeanor if they want to stay in office. That's how that works, and they're not going to change until that happens, and that's how you get them on code.
And I,
And
yeah, go on. Mm-hmm.
and you still remove them because they've already failed. So there's no turning back now, because now they've already showed their hands that they're not willing to uh, uphold our 14th Amendment rights as blacks who descended from American slaves. And some of these people had years and years and years of a history in politics to prove otherwise, and they failed, like you said. So we need new candidates. We need a whole fresh sector of new candidates and just start over and uproot everything that's in there right now and just uproot it out and put new people in. And hold those people accountable. Hold me accountable.
Absolutely.
Hold anybody else accountable the same way.
Absolutely. Right. Absolutely. Accountable first to what you campaign on, and then for all the other things that we as the voters desire and need, because once you're elected United States Senator, you're not only the senator for California, you have all of us become your constituents because of your vote. And we would hope those votes would be in favor of the Black agenda. Finally, let me let you wrap this up. When I think about the code, what I'm not, and nobody can say I am that person, is one who's about allowing white supremacy to divide and conquer us. I believe that we are at a critical point in our existence here in the United States, and we have to be more willing to work together with those who see things as we see them. There's a whole lot of education that needs and is necessary for a lot of Black people to get on code. There's a lot of information teaching that has to be done around reparations. I mean, even the 4 points, the way you broke them down, people are going to need some education. And I believe we've just bought so into this American dream thing that has not materialized, which is why we are reparationists. And the reparations movement will be stronger and stronger because of grassroots people like Reps and the organizations she mentioned, and all of the reparations organizations throughout the nation that I believe is critical for all Black candidates to become familiar with. And so, having said that, if you believe that all of the Congressional Black Caucus needs to be replaced, like I believe most of them, if not all, I do believe that there is a little wiggle room with a couple of them that we may be able to sway them in our direction. And if that's the case,
like
fine.
Who?
Jamal Bowman, and you can listen to my video, to my interview with him a couple of weeks ago to see that he may be someone we can work with. Okay. We have our own issues here trying to keep him as our congressman right now and not have to retell our Black story to another congressperson, but that may happen anyway. So if we have one or two who we can salvage, so to speak, we'll keep them. But if that's the case, if you're going to get elected to a 6-year term and you believe, like I do, that most of them need to be replaced, how effective do you believe you'll be able to be without having them there to co-sponsor any of this plan that you have put forth? And I'll let that be my last question and let you wrap up there.
Yeah, well, I mean, if they're not there, that's because another candidate from the grassroots replaced them. You know, the people voted in another candidate. So if there's a politician that's not addressing the needs of our group and of our lineage, then they're going to be replaced. So I will have an entire new constituency. I'm not constituency, but of politicians, you know, that's right there with me. I would have a whole new path to work with. You know, these are my comrades. So it'll be very easy to do. And that is really the ultimate goal, is to convince many more people like myself to get in there.
Oh, we're working on it. We are most definitely working on it. We are um, raising up new candidates because something has to be done. A change has to be made. Well, listen, Deon D. Jenkins, I wish you well. I do pray that you will get to these organizations mentioned and make a true connection. I'm not sure if you have time to do that in a very substantial way before next Tuesday, but definitely they're there. They are willing to work with you. I'm sure hear your voice as you said you are willing to work with them as well. And I hope things go well because we really need more reparationist candidates, people who are deep thinkers, to come to the forefront and have us possibly give some support to. We are many of us are just finding out about you on last night, and you have been in the spaces all day, and that's really great. And you have some interviews coming up, you said, and some commercials. We wish you the best.
Mm. I said I have some interviews coming up and some commercials.
Oh, did you not say interviews? I'm
No,
sorry.
no, no, no. I said I have ads out there
Ads. Okay.
that are running, yeah, on social media. Yeah.
Oh, those aren't commercials. Okay, but ads. Okay. Okay.
I no, I thought you said interviews inside of a commercial. It's all good.
Oh no, I said interviews and commercials, but
Okay,
either,
okay, yeah, yeah,
either
yeah,
way,
okay,
you're
yeah,
making the
yeah, yeah.
rounds. You're
Right, right,
making the
right.
rounds, and that's good. Your
Yeah,
name is
right,
getting out there.
right,
I
right.
I wish you had some money behind you because that's a machine that you are running against, and he's your true opponent, right? Is
Mm-hmm.
and that's what I'm gonna say. Let me say this, and I'm not.
I'm gonna tell you like this. If I could pass the primaries, he's not such of a hard problem anymore because the problem is getting past the primaries. Once you pass the primaries, then you make it to the general election. You get a bigger push because now more people are focusing on the final two candidates. So once people start focusing on the final two candidates, I could really be able to network a lot better, and people would really start to rally a lot
Oh,
better.
because you all have ranked choice. You have ranked choice. Is that it?
You have ranked choice.
Okay,
As
gotcha.
far as being the final two, and
Okay,
so more people start paying attention to the general election. A lot of people don't pay attention to the primaries, but they come out in November. So, with that being said, if I'm able to, convince the people that I can actually win a primary, now it seems more of an ultimate goal and more of an obtainable goal, right? Because with some people, unfortunately, they think it's an unobtainable goal.
I
You
hear
know,
you.
so my job is to right now just get in that final two. I don't have to be the number one guy. I just got to be the number two guy, and then I could build from there. And I could definitely be the number two guy.
Okay,
That could definitely happen for the primaries to actually allow me to advance to the general election, and that
gotcha.
can happen. That could definitely happen. Yeah.
See, my friend Junius and I, we're here in New York, and we probably don't really understand all that California goes through to get their elections. We've
Right.
just
So
gotten
right
ranked
out
choice.
here in California, they have a primary, and the final two make it to the general election.
Wow, that's real
Yeah.
different. Because our
Right.
primaries decide who's going to be in the general election. Well, that's good. I love civics. I absolutely love civics, and that's something new
Hold
to
on.
know.
Hold on. What would you say? How does it work in your
In
state?
New York,
Yeah.
we just started ranked choice, but not for the federal positions. It's only for our local. It's only for I'm not sure. Juniors, do we do it for the state as well? I don't think we do it for the state, just the local. And we just started that in our last cycle around 2019, actually. And it is it goes down to 5 levels. It's a whole lesson in and of
Oh,
itself.
really?
Yeah,
So
but
who makes it to the general election? It's only two people, right?
no, it's one person from one party, one person from one party.
Oh, one person. Yeah. So yeah.
So the
So
two people, yeah, you might have a Republican and you have a Democrat.
you get a
Yeah,
nominee. Yeah, you get a Republican nominee and a Democratic nominee.
yeah.
Out here, it doesn't matter. It's just like
It's free
whoever
for
got
all.
those final two votes. Yeah,
Wow, that's
a
real
free for
different.
all.
Okay.
Right,
That's
right,
real
right.
different. I like a little more structure, but if that works for California, I'm not mad at you all. Now, Deon, you may want to bow out because I do have some commentary, and you've already said to reps that you didn't want to bring up Marcel, but this is a general commentary for everybody out there because you're never going to get me being dividing and conquer. So out of respect for you, you may not want to hear this. It's not even about Marcel, but it is a commentary that may harken back to it, and you might not want to be here. But if you don't mind
Well,
staying,
I would like to respond to it because yeah, I'm
okay,
on your platform, so I
okay,
don't want that to be the last image of me without me being able to address it. So
okay,
yeah,
all right.
yeah.
Here's my commentary, everybody. Um, Everyone reveres, or most people revere, the late Reverend Dr. Martin Luther King Jr. and all the work that he did, particularly around the March on Washington, which if you have, not you, but if any of you have gone into the history books, by now you are familiar, well familiar with the name Bayard Rustin. That march can be accredited to Mr. Rustin in many ways in terms of that street team. He was the epitome of a street team that got and coordinated everybody in this nation getting to Washington, D.C. for the famed march. Mr. Bayard Rustin had hand in writing the famous "I Have a Dream" speech. Mr. Bayard Rustin may have wanted to be in the forefront, but because Dr. King's handlers, not so much Dr. King specifically, and anyone is free to correct me on that, but the decision was made to keep him in the background. Mr. Rustin did just that because he understood that what our people needed was more important than him being on the forefront. The reason why, and you can all look up Mr. Bayard Rustin, he put the mission, that's the bottom line. He put the mission above his personal feelings, his position. And as a result, we ultimately got the Voter Rights Act and the Civil Rights Act. And that was teamwork. So I have my hand is in a few different things too. But one thing I don't do, I don't go against my own people when they are on code. And that's why I asked the question about code, because my thing is Black first. I make no apologies, none. And I know a lot of people don't like to see me coming. And some of those people look just like you and I. They don't like to see me coming because they already know that when she gets there, she's unapologetically Black first. And they know it. They tolerate me, but that's okay. I can be tolerated if I'm advancing the goal for Black people. And that's what I really want. And I don't get into these Twitter battles. I don't do that. That's not me, because I know where the real enemy is. And I feel like as a community, we so often forget. We're only fighting for reparations because white supremacists don't want us to have what we deserve. So it's not you that I'm fighting against. You shouldn't be fighting against me. I shouldn't be fighting against reps or juniors or anyone else who might be listening to us. They are not my enemies. I know I'm laser-like focused on who the enemy is. And the enemy is anyone, even if they look like me, who interferes with what I believe will benefit the Black community. And I believe that the redress that is long overdue is what will be beneficial to the Black community. And for the Congressional Black Caucus, for any of them who don't believe in the same way, guess what? We are about to primary them in 2024. Their heads are going to spin. And these candidates will be grown up from the grassroots, and they will be able to flip their seats. That's how I stay on code. Nobody's going to goad me into talking about you reps or juniors. Those are just the names that I'm seeing, because I know that you and I, as distant cousins, right? We're all like distant cousins. We can have disagreements, but guess what? They're not going to win at our expense. That's me. So I want people who revere the work that Dr. King lost his life over to remember how he had to silence or hide his friend and his friend acquiesced to that demand so that we could advance. And I just hope the same can be true for candidates who we raise up in this grassroots movement for redress for Black people who are descendants of American chattel slavery. You may respond if you like.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. I would like to know why was a guy put in a back burner?
I don't want to get into that. You already said you didn't want to speak about Marcel, and I'm not going to
Oh, okay,
disrespect him.
okay.
You
I
know,
see.
that's why I
I
said y'all
see.
can go and
Oh,
read.
at that time, okay, yeah. So no, no, let's talk about that. That's a good because at that time they felt that a guy like that who had I okay, I'm willing to talk about it, but not speaking on Marcel. Um, was the guy who they thought should be in the background LGBT?
Yes, he was.
And was that the reason why they thought that he should be in the background?
Yes.
So why did they think that he should be in the background because he was LGBT? What were their reasonings behind that?
I'm sorry. I'm trying to read this comment over here. Say that
Yeah.
again.
Yeah, what were his reason? What were the reasonings that they articulated why he should be in the background on because him being LGBT? Excuse the sentence
He,
structure.
he had an LGBTQ. I think it was because he was openly gay, right? And that might not look good for the movement if he were out front or played a prominent role. Certainly, you and I weren't there, so I don't know what those conversations behind doors were. But all of this information has been coming out in the last 15, 20 years. It's out there.
Right.
It's well
So Martin
documented.
Luther King, a guy who we revere, believed that a guy who is openly LGBT or LGBT of any sort should stay in the background. Is that correct?
Oh, I'm so sorry. I was reading that comment again. Dr. King thought that he should stay in the
So
background.
no, 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 no. That's a question. Dr. King and his comrades, are you saying that because he was LGBT, Dr. King and his comrades believe that a guy like that should stay in the background?
I doubt if it was like a guy like that, but because of his
Yeah.
yeah,
So
or his sexual orientation. Yeah.
as great as Dr. Martin Luther King, he is revered in history. Like he's one of the greatest men who ever lived. If he had a reasoning behind that, um, why is it different now?
Why is it different now?
Hmm.
I first of all, I think it was a calculated risk. The risk that probably Dr. King and the rest took, and that Mr. Rustin acquiesced to, was for the greater good, for the
Right,
greater good of the Black
right,
community. Yeah.
right. And the reason why it was for the greater good was because they were all in agreement that the optics of a gay Black man in the forefront of a political movement was probably not a good idea. Am I correct?
At that time, perhaps.
At that time, right?
Oh yeah, most definitely.
Okay,
Probably not.
right.
Probably
So
not.
yeah, okay, yeah. That was so Martin Luther King, he submitted to that idea. So and that's
I'm
all I wanted to ask.
okay. No,
That
that's fine.
that's all I wanted to
let
ask.
me let me address Tim's Major's comment, because that's what's gotten me distracted. And so Tim, if you were offended by me saying, listen, I'm not going to excuse white people who have kept us from getting what we are owed, if that's what you mean, I'm not doing that. So if you want to absolve them of all of that they've done to us, you may do that. And I'm not even at odds with you about it is a debt that the American government owes to us. That part is as much a part of the conversation as the fact that it's owed. So we're not. I'm not going to fight with you. If you have a problem with my syntax or my sentence structure or the words that I use, that'll be a problem that I'll let you have. But don't dare call me unintelligent because I don't speak like you. And see, that's the thing. This
that's
is
the problem.
nonsense.
Yeah, right.
This is nonsense that you felt that it was important for you
Right.
to come and say intelligent Black Americans are fighting
Right.
for reparations. See, I don't need that. And I'm not going to do the same for you. So guess who wins? I win, because
Right.
my level of intelligence is clearly not in the same place that yours is. And I'll leave it at that. That was unnecessary. That was unnecessary. And that's exactly what I was talking about. This division, use that energy for our true enemies. I'm not your enemy, sir. Oh my goodness. People are just too much.
Yeah.
I'm not the one.
It's like they get so caught up in attacking you, calling you names. And that's part of the code. Dr. Neely Fuller stated that we shouldn't call each other names. That was part of the code.
As if, and the reality is the fight is being led in California with that task force. And what the rest of this country gets in terms of Black people will be based off of the model that they are putting out there for us. They've discussed all of this. They have a 500-page draft that they are releasing tomorrow. I suggest any and everyone who has an opportunity, get it and read it, where they will point the finger at who has been keeping us from this. The American government. Who is the American government? Who runs the American government? Let's come on, let's be honest here. I have no reason whatsoever to absolve anyone who has caused the Black community harm. Okay? Thank you, sir. Thank you, Deon. I'm sorry that happened, but I'm not going to fight with my own people. Y'all are not going to get me to fight with you, but you won't come on my platform and be disrespectful to me, because I would never do that to you. I wish you well next Tuesday, Mr. Jenkins. I really do.
Yes, ma'am. And to respond to that person's comment, I mean, we all understand that there is a debt that's owed. Like, nobody's in disagreement with that. The only thing that I believe is that we should work on making sure that we get our own candidates in those positions of power to implement that. That's the only difference. Like, I'm not trying to pressure Joe Biden or pressure anybody. You're going to pressure them automatically if you put your own candidates in there. But yeah, it was great talking with you.
Thank you so much, Tim. Peace to you. Have a good night. Thank you. Thank you very much. Good night, everybody.
Thank you.